Hello, fourth graders. Today I'm going to read to you Energy Crisis, The Future of Fossil Fuels by Daniel R. Faust. There you can see the table of contents, and here's the introduction. Almost everything we use in our daily lives comes from fossil fuels. We use these fuels to heat our homes, give us light and power, and to make our cars run. We also use these fuels to make important products, such as roads and plastics. The problem is that fossil fuels are not readily renewable. In fact, we could run out of some fossil fuels within the next 75 years. If this happens, we could have a major energy crisis on our hands. Will we be ready? Come discover the future of fossil fuels. Energy Crisis, The Future of Fossil Fuels. The Forrestal Building, Washington, D.C., the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Energy. Good morning, and thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dwayne Michaels. I work for the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research, the EER. The Department of Energy asked the EER to mediate this gathering today. The EER is a policy organization, what some people would call a think tank. We provide scientific and technical information about energy and the environment to activists, journalists, and the public as a whole. As you can imagine, these groups are anxious to know what the world's governments are doing about our dependence on fossil fuels. Mr. Patel, the United Nations Division for Sustainable Development. In 2002, the United Nations promised to look for ways to make cleaner, more efficient, and cost-effective energy available to all nations of the world. That's assuming we'll need to find alternatives to fossil fuels, correct? Professor Rupert St. John, Department of Earth Sciences, University of Oxford. I think we are all assuming that, Mr. Michaels. As you all know, the very nature of fossil fuels makes them a limited resource. Fossil fuels are created when plants and animals, such as dinosaurs, die, and their remains are covered by water and layers of sand and rock and become fossilized. Over millions of years, the pressure from these layers of earth changes the dead plants and animals into fossil fuels. If the planet's supply of fossil fuels is used up, and an alternative has not been found, life as we know it will change. Mr. Linderman, the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Yes, almost everything we use in our daily lives comes from fossil fuels. The electricity we use to power our lights, computers, and televisions, the gasolines in our cars, even the gas we use to heat our homes in the winter, they all come from fossil fuels. Fossil fuels have been a great benefit to humanity. It could be one of the driving forces behind the success of human civilization. As early as 1100 BCE, the Chinese were using coal to heat their homes. Fossil fuels can exist in three forms. Coal, like the Chinese were using, is the solid form. Liquid fossil fuel is called petroleum. Petroleum is used to make gasoline and plastics. Fossil fuel can also be found in a gaseous state known as natural gas. Despite being a versatile energy source, fossil fuels do have some drawbacks, don't they? As a Professor St. John stated, their supply is limited. Pollution is another major drawback. Since it takes millions of years to create new fossil fuels, once they are used up, they cannot be easily replaced or put back. Scientists expect that Earth's supply of petroleum will be used up within the next 50 to 75 years. 90% of the energy used in the United States comes from fossil fuels. If new sources of energy cannot be found, it could lead to shortages and increased prices, similar to what happened during the 1970s. Furthermore, many countries get their supply of oil from the Middle East. This gives the countries of that region a good deal of political and economic power. This has led to conflict in the past, and as supplies go down, could do so again. Mr. Imhara, the Environmental Protection Agency. Let's not overlook the harm using fossil fuels can cause to the environment. Mr. Gibson, Greenpeace. Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Imhara. We're talking about smog, oil spills, acid rain, and global warming. When fossil fuels are burned, they release tiny grains called soot. Burning coal causes the most pollution. The famous London fog was caused by hundreds of years of burning coal to heat homes. The burning of coal also allowed for major advances in industry during the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. The exhaust from thousands of cars, trucks, and other vehicles has caused harmful smog in Los Angeles and other major cities around the world. Pollutants from coal, smoke, and car exhaust can mix with clouds and fall as acid rain. The pollution caused from burning fossil fuels traps heat within the Earth's atmosphere. The increased heat changes weather patterns worldwide, leading to widespread floods and droughts. This effect is known as global warming. Studies show that the pollutants found in soot and smog can make sicknesses like asthma worse, cause bronchitis, harm lungs, and lessen the body's ability to fight off illness. Dr. O'Brien, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In fact, air pollution from burning fossil fuels kills more people than car accidents. Furthermore, if the levels of harmful gases were cut in New York City, Mexico, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Santiago, Chile, over 60,000 lives could be saved in the next 20 years. That's exactly the reason why the Department of Energy is looking at sources of clean, renewable energy. Renewable energy can come from water, wind, or solar power. India, Brazil, and some parts of the United States use hydroelectric power. Dams like the Hoover Dam can use the pressure from rushing water to spin turbines and generate electricity. In the hills of Northern California, hundreds of windmills are being used to harness the wind. The wind turns the windmills, which create electricity. Solar energy can also be used. Energy from the sun is stored in panels called solar cells. Some solar cells can only store enough energy to heat a small home. Others can change the solar energy into electricity. Professor Stark, School of Engineering, Stanford University. Our dependence on gasoline for automobiles is still a hurdle that would need to be overcome. Many automobile manufacturers are trying to produce cleaner vehicles. Automobiles are being produced that use electric batteries as a power source, cutting down on pollution from car exhaust. But even though these vehicles may be cleaner, they still require fossil fuels to generate electricity. Solar energy could be used as an alternate to gasoline. Scientists and engineers in California built a prototype automobile that ran on solar power. Members of the scientific community across the globe are trying to find similar solutions. Scientists in Brazil found a way to make a fuel called ethanol. Ethanol is made from corn and sugarcane. This kind of fuel burns very cleanly, but cars would need a special engine to use ethanol. This has been very helpful. It sounds like our supply of fossil fuels may run out, but if we plan ahead, we should be ready to face that problem when it comes. Your time and input in this matter has been quite helpful, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all, and have a wonderful afternoon. And here we have some facts on fossil fuels, fourth graders. So if you would like to pause the video, you can read these. And of course, like in all good nonfiction stories, we have a glossary with new words that we may have learned. And if you would like also to pause here, you can learn some new words. And here we have our index and a website you can go for further information. There you have it. I hope you learned something today about fossil fuels.